Minji found herself thinking of Mr. Min's strange words, his sudden intensity, the pain she had glimpsed in his eyes. She tried to push the thoughts away, but they only grew stronger, leaving her anxious. What secrets did Mr. Min hide behind his proud exterior? And why, of all people, did she feel drawn to find out? In a small town near the bustling city of Seoul, lived the Jang family. Mr. Jang was a kind, hard-working man, and his wife, Mrs. Jang, was known for her love of gossip and matchmaking. Together, they had 5 daughters: Minji, Jisoo, Hannah, Sujin, and little Yuna. Mrs. Jang had one dream in life: to see her daughters marry rich, respected men so they would never have to worry. One summer evening, the town was buzzing with news. A young, wealthy man named Mr. Kang had rented a grand house nearby. He was known for his fine clothes, his handsome face, and most importantly his fortune. Mrs. Jang was beside herself with excitement. "Oh, if only one of my girls could marry him," she sighed, fanning herself dramatically. Mrs. Jang received an invitation addressed to the whole family. Her heart swelled with joy as she held the elegant card in her hands, the golden script sparkling under the soft light. A luxurious party. It had been ages since they had attended anything so grand. Her eyes brimmed with excitement as she imagined her family all dressed up, mingling with the elite. But as quickly as the joy came, it faded. Her smile waned, and her gaze grew distant. Sitting down on the edge of her bed, Mrs. Jang sighed deeply, the weight of her thoughts pulling her shoulders down. The party required elegance, sophistication, things that her modest budget couldn't easily provide. How could she make this a magical moment for her daughters? She ran her fingers through her hair, pondering, the room heavy with silence. Then, like a spark in the dark, an idea struck her. A faint smile crept onto her lips as she recalled her old friend, Mira, who owned a boutique known for its stunning, yet reasonably priced dresses. Without wasting another moment, Mrs. Jang grabbed her coat and made her way to Mira's shop. The familiar bell above the door chimed as she entered, the rich scent of fabric and perfume welcoming her. Rows of elegant dresses lined the walls, each more exquisite than the last. Mira looked up from her counter and beamed. "Jang, what a pleasant surprise!" Mira exclaimed, coming around to embrace her. "What brings you here today?" Mrs. Jang hesitated for a moment, embarrassed to admit her financial worries. But the warmth in Mira's eyes gave her courage. "Mira, I need your help. We've been invited to a luxurious party, and I want my daughters to have a dress that make them feel like queens." But her voice trailed off, the unspoken words hanging heavy between them. Mira's smile softened, understanding immediately. "Say no more. Let me show you something special." She led Mrs. Jang to a rack in the corner, where elegant dresses hung with care. "These are beautiful and won't break the bank. And for you, I'll make sure they're just perfect." Mrs. Jang's eyes glistened with gratitude as she watched Mira pull out shimmering gowns. Could this moment be the answer to her prayers? The whole town was invited, and Mrs. Jang spent hours dressing her daughters, fixing Minji's hair and adjusting Jisoo's dress just right. The grand hall buzzed with conversation, chandeliers casting warm light over the glittering crowd. Minji and her family had just arrived, greeted by the ever-amiable Mr. Kang. His energy was infectious, his laughter carrying over the chatter. But his companion, Mr. Min, was a stark contrast, silent, aloof, and observant, as though the entire affair bored him. Minji first noticed Mr. Min when her younger sister, Hannah, attempted to approach him. Hannah had always been bold, her youthful charm capable of disarming even the most stoic of people. She offered him a dazzling smile and an introduction, but Mr. Min merely nodded, his response clipped and distant. As Hannah returned to Minji's side, her cheeks pink with embarrassment, Minji scowled. "Who does he think he is?" she muttered under her breath. Later in the evening, Minji found herself lingering near a conversation between Mr. Kang and Mr. Minute. Mr. Kang, ever the social butterfly, was teasing his friend. "Min, You've been standing here like a statue all night. Surely, with all the effort people have made to dress up, you could manage a compliment or two." Mr. Min's expression remained neutral, but there was a flicker of amusement in his eyes. "I see no point in flattery, Kang," he replied coolly. Mr. Kang laughed. "Come on. There must be someone here who's caught your eye. What about Miss Jang over there? She's quite charming, don't you think?" Minji's ears perked up at the mention of her name, and she instinctively turned slightly to catch their expressions. Mr. Min followed Mr. Kang's gaze, his eyes briefly resting on Minji. Then, without hesitation, he replied, "She's not pretty enough to tempt me." His tone was calm, devoid of cruelty, as if he were stating a simple fact. Minji froze. The words hit her like a slap, their casual delivery making them sting even more. She felt her cheeks flush, her heart pounding in a mix of humiliation and anger. For a moment, she considered walking away, but something in her refused to let it slide. She turned toward him, her chin raised defiantly, their eyes locked, and for the first time that evening, she saw something flicker in his composed expression: surprise, perhaps, or the faintest hint of regret. Minji didn't say a word. Instead, she smiled a cold, sharp smile that made Mr. Min's brow furrow slightly and walked away. If he thought she would crumble under his dismissal, he was mistaken. As she mingled with the other guests, she could still feel his gaze following her, but she didn't turn back. Let him watch, she thought. Let him wonder. Little did she know, this brief, cutting exchange was just the beginning of a tangled story that would unravel their guarded worlds.